Let me tell you who I am. I'm Janet Richards, a senior research engineer at Banner Holding Company. For the past 8 years, I've been the quiet force behind some of our most successful projects. I don't seek the spotlight, I prefer the hum of machinery and the satisfaction of solving problems that others deem impossible. My colleagues respect my work, even if they don't always understand the technical complexities behind it. Banner Holding Co. isn't just any company. We're an industrial conglomerate specializing in sustainable manufacturing solutions. When Fortune 500 companies need to reduce their environmental footprint while maintaining efficiency, they call us. It's demanding work, but it's work that matters. At least, that's what I thought until that Tuesday morning in March. The man sitting across from me was Robert Kingston, our newly appointed division director. He'd arrived 6 months earlier with an MBA from an Ivy League school and a reputation for streamlining operations. What he lacked in technical expertise, he made up for in political maneuvering. From day one, he'd made it clear that he intended to reshape our department according to his vision. The project that started this whole mess was the Green Tech Initiative, a comprehensive overhaul of our manufacturing processes that would reduce carbon emissions by 37% while increasing productivity by 22%. I'd been leading the technical development for over a year, working closely with our environmental compliance team and external consultants. The breakthrough came during a particularly challenging week in January. We'd been struggling with a filtration system that kept failing under high-pressure conditions. Traditional solutions weren't working, and the client was growing impatient. I remember the exact moment the solution hit me. I was reviewing molecular diagrams at 2 a.m, my coffee long gone cold, when I realized we were approaching the problem from the wrong angle entirely. Instead of trying to strengthen the existing system, what if we redistributed the pressure points? I spent the next 72 hours developing a completely new configuration. The math was complex, requiring advanced fluid dynamics calculations and stress analysis modeling. When I finally tested the prototype, it exceeded all our performance targets. The results were extraordinary. Not only did we solve the filtration problem, but the new system was 40% more efficient than anything currently on the market. The client was ecstatic. Our CEO personally called to congratulate the team. Industry publications began reaching out for interviews. This wasn't just a successful project, it was a game-changer. That's when Kingston decided to submit our work for the National Engineering Excellence Award. It's the most prestigious recognition in our field, awarded annually to innovations that demonstrate exceptional technical achievement and practical impact. Winners receive significant media attention, career advancement opportunities, and often, lucrative consulting contracts. I assumed, naturally, that as the lead engineer and primary inventor, I would be listed as the principal contributor on the submission. I'd written the technical specifications, developed the mathematical models, and overseen every aspect of the implementation. My fingerprints were on every component of this innovation. But when Kingston called me into his office that Tuesday morning, everything changed. "Janet, I need to discuss the award submission with you," he said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. "I've been reviewing the project timeline and contributions, and I think we need to make some adjustments." The submission form was spread across his desk like evidence in a criminal trial. My name appeared in several places: lead engineer, primary inventor, technical director. But as I watched, he began crossing out my name with deliberate, mechanical strokes. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This was my project. I developed the core technology." Kingston didn't look up from his editing. "You were part of a team, Janet. The innovation was a collaborative effort. I think it's more appropriate to emphasize the leadership and strategic vision that made this project possible." My heart began pounding. Strategic vision? "Robert, you weren't even here when we started this project. You joined the company after we'd already solved the major technical challenges." That's when he looked up, his eyes cold and calculating. "You've had your moment, Janet. The initial development phase was important, but the real value came from proper project management and business strategy. That's what the award committee will be evaluating." The room seemed to shrink around me. 8 years of dedication, of proving myself in a male-dominated field, of working twice as hard to earn half the recognition. And now, in a single moment, my greatest professional achievement was being stripped away. "Who's being listed as the principal contributor?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I am," Kingston replied matter-of-factly. along with Thomas Bradley from our business development team. You'll still be mentioned as a contributing team member, of course. Thomas Bradley, a perfectly competent project coordinator who joined the initiative during its final 3 months. His primary contribution had been organizing meetings and updating progress reports. He was a nice enough person, but he couldn't explain the technical aspects of our innovation if his life depended on it. I wanted to argue, to fight, to demand the recognition I'd earned. But something in Kingston's demeanor told me that this wasn't a negotiation. This was a decree. I was being informed, not consulted. I see, I said quietly. Kingston nodded, apparently satisfied that I'd accepted his decision without further protest. I'm glad you understand. This kind of recognition is important for the company's reputation. We need to present our best leadership face to the industry. I left his office in a daze. The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral procession. My colleagues were buzzing with excitement about the award submission, completely unaware of what had just transpired. Several people congratulated me on the nomination, assuming I was the lead candidate. I smiled and nodded, not trusting my voice to remain steady. That evening, I sat in my apartment staring at my computer screen. The technical documentation I'd written for the project filled dozens of files. Equations, diagrams, test results, performance analyses, all bearing my digital signature and timestamps. The evidence of my contribution was overwhelming and undeniable. I thought about my father, who'd worked as a machinist for 35 years without ever receiving recognition for his innovations. He'd often told me that the most important thing wasn't credit, but the knowledge that you'd done good work. Let the work speak for itself, he'd say. But what happens when the work can't speak? When it's been silenced by politics and ambition? The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of accepting the situation, I began documenting everything. Every email, every meeting note, every technical specification that proved my role in the project. I wasn't planning anything dramatic, I just wanted to preserve the truth. The award submission was due on Friday. Thursday afternoon, I learned that Kingston had scheduled a department meeting to announce the submission publicly. He wanted to make a big show of it, inviting other division heads and even some external clients. It was going to be his moment of triumph. I spent Thursday night creating a comprehensive technical presentation about the Green Tech Initiative. Not to cause trouble, but to ensure that if anyone asked detailed questions about the innovation, there would be someone who could answer them accurately. I included timeline documentation, development notes, and detailed explanations of the breakthrough moments. Friday morning arrived with an unusual energy in the office. People were dressed a bit more formally, excitement crackling through the hallways. The award submission was being treated like a major company milestone, which it was. This kind of recognition could lead to significant new business opportunities and enhanced industry reputation. The meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock in our largest conference room. By 1:45, nearly 50 people had gathered, engineers, project managers, business development staff, and several clients who happened to be visiting that day. Kingston stood at the front of the room, clearly enjoying the attention. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his own importance. Today marks a significant milestone for Banner Holding Company. We're submitting our Green Tech Initiative for the National Engineering Excellence Award. Applause filled the room. I sat in the back, my hands folded in my lap, watching the performance unfold. Kingston continued, this project represents the kind of innovative thinking and strategic leadership that defines our company. Through careful planning and execution, we've developed a solution that will transform how the industry approaches sustainable manufacturing. He clicked to his first slide, which showed impressive performance metrics and cost savings. Everything he said was technically accurate, but it was like watching someone else wear my clothes and claim they'd tailored them perfectly. The core innovation, Kingston explained, required a fundamental rethinking of traditional filtration approaches. Instead of reinforcing existing systems, we developed an entirely new pressure distribution methodology. My methodology. My calculations. My sleepless nights and breakthrough moments. But spoken in his voice, with his confident delivery, it sounded like his achievement. The presentation continued for 20 minutes. Kingston fielded questions with the smooth expertise of someone who'd thoroughly studied the material without truly understanding it. When technical questions arose, he deflected them with phrases like the implementation details are quite complex and our engineering team handled the technical execution brilliantly. As the meeting concluded, several people approached me to offer congratulations. They assumed I was involved in the submission, which I was, just not in the way they imagined. I thanked them graciously, not wanting to create awkwardness or drama. That weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. The award submission was now official, with Kingston and Bradley listed as the primary contributors. My name appeared in the supporting documentation, but in a way that minimized my actual role. It was professionally devastating and personally humiliating. Monday morning brought unexpected news. Margaret Thompson, our VP of Engineering, had received a call from the award committee. They had some questions about the technical aspects of our submission and wanted to schedule a detailed review session. This was normal procedure for high-profile submissions, but it meant that someone would need to present in-depth technical explanations to a panel of expert engineers. The kind of detailed, mathematical explanations that required intimate knowledge of the development process. Kingston called an emergency meeting with Bradley and me. His usual confidence seemed slightly shaken. The committee wants a comprehensive technical presentation, he said, consulting his notes. They're particularly interested in the mathematical modeling and the development timeline. Bradley looked uncomfortable. I can handle the project management aspects, but the technical details. He trailed off, clearly recognizing his limitations. Kingston turned to me. Janet, you'll need to prepare a detailed technical presentation. Cover all the mathematical foundations, the testing protocols, the performance validations. Everything they might ask about. I nodded calmly. Of course. When is the presentation scheduled? Next Wednesday. We'll have 3 hours to present our case to a panel of 5 industry experts. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same man who'd removed my name from the submission now needed me to defend the very work he'd claimed as his own. But I agreed to prepare the presentation, maintaining my professional demeanor despite the circumstances. That week, I threw myself into creating the most comprehensive technical presentation of my career. Every equation, every design decision, every breakthrough moment was documented with meticulous detail. I wanted to ensure that the committee understood not just what we'd accomplished, but how we'd accomplished it. The presentation was scheduled for 10 o'clock Wednesday morning at the committee's headquarters downtown. Kingston, Bradley, and I drove there together in awkward silence. The building was impressive, glass and steel rising 30 floors above the bustling city streets. The committee room was formal and intimidating. 5 distinguished engineers sat behind a curved table, their faces serious and attentive. These were people who'd spent their careers evaluating technical innovations, and they knew how to ask the right questions. Kingston began with his prepared remarks, essentially repeating his Friday presentation with minor modifications. He spoke confidently about strategic vision and leadership, but I noticed the committee members exchanging glances when he used vague language to describe technical concepts. Bradley followed with his project management overview, which was competent but uninspiring. The committee listened politely, but their questions were perfunctory. They were clearly waiting for the technical presentation. Then it was my turn. I began with the fundamental challenge that had initiated our research. I explained the limitations of existing filtration systems and the mathematical constraints that had stumped previous attempts at solutions. The committee members leaned forward, their interest clearly piqued. The breakthrough came when we realized that traditional approaches were addressing the wrong variables, I explained, clicking to a slide showing complex fluid dynamics equations. Instead of trying to strengthen the filtration medium, we needed to redistribute the pressure gradients across the entire system. For the next 90 minutes, I walked them through every aspect of the technical development. I showed them my original calculations, explained the iterative testing process, and demonstrated how each modification had led to improved performance. The committee members asked penetrating questions, and I answered each one with the confidence that comes from genuine expertise. The most senior committee member, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, had been largely silent throughout the presentation. Near the end, she asked a question that changed everything. Ms. Richards, she said, your understanding of this technology is remarkably comprehensive. Can you tell us about your specific role in the development process? I glanced at Kingston, who had grown increasingly uncomfortable as the presentation progressed. This was the moment of truth. I was the lead engineer on the project, I said simply. I developed the core mathematical models, designed the pressure distribution system, and oversaw the testing and validation phases. Dr. Morrison nodded. I see. And Mr. Kingston, could you explain your role in the technical development? Kingston cleared his throat. I provided strategic oversight and project leadership. I ensured that the technical work aligned with business objectives and company standards. Of course, Dr. Morrison said. But regarding the specific technical innovations, the mathematical modeling, the pressure distribution concepts, the filtration system redesign, what was your direct contribution to those developments? The room fell silent. Kingston's face had gone pale, and he seemed to be struggling to find the right words. Well, he began slowly, I provided guidance and direction. I helped frame the problem and establish the parameters for the technical team to work within. Dr. Morrison's expression remained neutral, but I could see that she understood exactly what was happening. The other committee members were also exchanging meaningful glances. I see, she said. Thank you for clarifying that. The presentation concluded shortly afterward. The committee told us they would review our submission and provide their decision within 2 weeks. We thanked them for their time and prepared to leave. As we waited for the elevator, Kingston's phone rang. He answered it quickly, his voice tight with stress. What do you mean, they're asking questions, he said into the phone. What kind of questions? I could hear the agitated voice on the other end, but couldn't make out the words. Kingston's face grew increasingly pale as he listened. I'll be right there, he said, ending the call abruptly. The elevator arrived, and we rode down in complete silence. Kingston seemed lost in thought, his usual confidence replaced by obvious anxiety. When we reached the parking garage, he turned to Bradley and me. I need to get back to the office immediately, he said. There's been some kind of development. The drive back was tense. Kingston made several phone calls, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. I caught fragments of conversations that mentioned investigation and ethics committee and reputation damage. Something significant was happening, but I couldn't piece together the full picture. When we arrived at Banner Holding Co., the atmosphere was noticeably different. People were clustered in small groups, speaking in low voices. Several senior executives were visible in the hallways, moving with the purposeful urgency that signals a corporate crisis. Kingston disappeared into his office and closed the door. Through the glass walls, I could see him on the phone, gesturing animatedly. Whatever news he'd received was clearly serious. I returned to my desk and tried to focus on my regular work, but concentration was impossible. The events of the morning had left me emotionally drained and professionally uncertain. I'd presented my work honestly and comprehensively, but I had no idea what the committee would decide. Around 3 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Margaret Thompson, our VP of Engineering. Janet, could you come to my office? I need to discuss something important with you. Her tone was serious but not alarming. I made my way to the executive floor, wondering what new development awaited me. Margaret's office was spacious and comfortable, with windows overlooking the city skyline. She gestured for me to sit in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. I've been having some interesting conversations today, she began. It seems that several members of the engineering community have been asking questions about our award submission. My heart began racing. What kind of questions? Technical questions. Detailed questions about the mathematical foundations of the Green Tech Initiative. Questions that suggest people are trying to understand who actually developed the core innovations. She paused, studying my face carefully. Janet, I need you to tell me exactly what happened with the award submission. I want to understand your role in the project and how the submission was prepared. For the next hour, I explained everything. The development process, my technical contributions, the meeting with Kingston where my name was removed from the submission. I showed her documentation, timelines, and technical specifications that proved my central role in the innovation. Margaret listened without interruption, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she sat quietly for several minutes, processing what she'd heard. This is extremely serious, she said finally. If what you're telling me is accurate, we have a significant problem. The award submission contains misrepresentations that could damage our company's reputation and expose us to ethical violations. She picked up her phone and made a call. I need to see you in my office immediately, she said to whoever answered. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention. 10 minutes later, Kingston appeared in the doorway. His face was flushed, and he looked like he'd been running. Margaret, I came as soon as I got your message, he said. What's so urgent? Sit down, Robert, she said, her voice carrying an authority I'd never heard before. We need to discuss the award submission. Kingston glanced at me nervously before taking a seat. What about it? I've been reviewing the technical documentation and discussing the project with Janet. I need you to explain your specific contributions to the Green Tech Initiative. The next 20 minutes were excruciating. Kingston attempted to defend his role and justify the award submission, but his explanations became increasingly convoluted and contradictory. When Margaret asked specific technical questions, he fumbled for answers that revealed his superficial understanding of the work. Finally, Margaret held up her hand to stop him. That's enough, Robert. I think I understand the situation now. She turned to me. Janet, I owe you an apology. This should never have happened. Your contributions to this project were substantial and deserving of recognition. Then she turned back to Kingston. Robert, I'm initiating a formal investigation into this matter. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending the outcome of that investigation. Kingston's face went white. Margaret, I think you're overreacting. This is just a misunderstanding about project responsibilities. No, Robert, she said firmly. This is about integrity, honesty, and proper recognition of contributions. Those are not negotiable values at this company. The meeting ended with Kingston being escorted from the building by security. It was a dramatic conclusion to what had started as a routine award submission, but it wasn't the end of the story. 4 days later, I was working at my desk when Kingston burst through the main entrance, his face red with fury and desperation. He strode directly to my work area, ignoring the surprised looks from my colleagues. Why did the committee blacklist us? He shouted, his voice echoing across the entire floor. What did you tell them? The office fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at the unfolding drama. Kingston stood over my desk, his hands trembling with rage. I didn't tell them anything that wasn't true, I said calmly, not rising from my chair. I presented the technical details of the project and answered their questions honestly. You sabotaged the submission, he accused, his voice getting louder. You couldn't handle sharing the recognition, so you destroyed our chances. That's when Margaret appeared, having heard the commotion from her office. Robert, you're not supposed to be in this building. Security is on their way. Kingston spun around to face her. This is all her fault, he said, pointing at me. She poisoned the committee against us. We would have won that award if she hadn't interfered. Margaret stepped forward, her expression stern. Robert, the committee made their decision based on the facts. They recognized that the technical innovations came from Janet's work, not from project management or strategic oversight. But I led the project. Kingston protested. I made it successful. You managed certain aspects of the project, Margaret corrected. But you didn't develop the core technology, and you certainly didn't deserve primary credit for innovations you didn't create. Security arrived and began escorting Kingston from the building. As he was led away, he turned back one final time. You think you've won, he called out to me. But nobody will remember your name. Technical people never get the real recognition. The office remained silent for several minutes after he left. Then, gradually, normal conversations resumed. My colleagues were supportive and understanding, but I could see the awkwardness in their eyes. Office drama of this magnitude creates ripples that last for months. 2 weeks later, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was Dr. Morrison from the award committee. Ms. Richards, she said, I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected as the recipient of this year's National Engineering Excellence Award for your work on the Green Tech Initiative. I almost dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what? Your technical presentation was exceptional, she continued. The committee was unanimous in recognizing your contributions as the primary driver of the innovation. Your mathematical modeling and pressure distribution system represent exactly the kind of breakthrough thinking we seek to honor. The award ceremony was held 6 weeks later at the Grand Ballroom of the Marriott downtown. 500 industry professionals attended, including colleagues from Banner Holding Co., competitors, clients, and journalists from engineering publications. Standing at the podium, holding the crystal award that represented the pinnacle of recognition in my field, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The late nights, the technical challenges, the moment of breakthrough, and yes, the political battle that had nearly cost me everything. This award represents more than technical achievement, I said to the audience. It represents the importance of integrity, honesty, and ensuring that contributions are recognized appropriately. Innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum, it requires dedication, expertise, and the courage to stand up for what's right. The applause was thunderous. Later, at the reception, dozens of people approached me with congratulations and business opportunities. 3 companies offered me senior positions, and 2 research institutions invited me to speak at their conferences. But the most meaningful moment came when Margaret Thompson approached me near the end of the evening. "Janet," she said, "I want you to know that this experience has led to significant changes in how we handle project recognition at Banner Holding Company. We've implemented new policies to ensure that technical contributions are properly acknowledged and credited." She paused, then continued. "I also want to offer you a promotion. How would you feel about becoming our new Director of Innovation? You'd have the authority to oversee all technical development projects and ensure that recognition is handled fairly." I accepted the position, and 6 months later, I was leading a team of 12 engineers on projects that would define the next generation of sustainable manufacturing technologies. The work was challenging and rewarding, but more importantly, it was an environment where contributions were valued and recognized appropriately. The Green Tech Initiative continued to generate business success for Banner Holding Company. Our clients saved millions of dollars in operational costs, and our company's reputation for innovation attracted new partnerships and opportunities. The technology I developed became the foundation for several additional projects, each one building on the mathematical principles I'd established. Looking back on that experience, I realized that the most important lesson wasn't about technical innovation or professional recognition. It was about the importance of standing up for truth, even when it's difficult or politically dangerous. There are moments in every career when you have to choose between convenience and integrity, between keeping quiet and speaking up. I chose to speak up, and that choice changed not just my own career, but the culture of recognition and accountability at my company. Sometimes the most important innovations aren't technological, they're cultural, ethical, and personal. The award sits on my desk now, a reminder of both the technical achievement it represents and the personal courage it required to claim that achievement. Every time I see it, I remember that moment when Kingston crossed out my name, and I think about how different my career might have been if I'd accepted that erasure. But I didn't accept it. I chose to fight for recognition, to stand up for my contributions, and to ensure that the work spoke for itself. That decision led to professional success, personal satisfaction, and the knowledge that I'd helped create a more fair and honest environment for everyone who came after me. So here's my question for you: when have you had to choose between convenience and integrity? When have you had to stand up for recognition that was rightfully yours? These moments define us more than any technical achievement or professional milestone. The work we do matters, but how we handle recognition, credit, and integrity matters even more. In a world where it's easy to let politics overshadow merit, sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply telling the truth and insisting that contributions be acknowledged fairly. What would you have done in my situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to fight for recognition of your work? How did you handle it? Your stories might help others who find themselves in similar situations. Until next time, keep innovating, keep fighting for what's right, and remember that the most important recognition often comes from knowing you've done the right thing, regardless of who gets the credit.